Hi, welcome to GuitarAudio.com. This is the beginners section, lesson 3, and this lesson's all about moving chords around. At this point, make it clear you should have all 8 of your basic chords, and you should be able to remember the names of the strings, the names of your fingers, the numbers of the strings, the numbers of the frets from lesson 1. So if the information from lesson 1 and lesson 2 aren't really clear in your mind, stop right now, go back, get those lessons down. If they are clear in your mind and you're happy to carry on, then let's do just that. So this lesson's all about learning how to move chords around quickly, smoothly, and quite efficiently. And the way that we do that is we practice the chord changes which cause you the most trouble as a guitarist, and they're the ones that have the biggest shape movement or position change with the hand. If you've been practicing these chords from lesson 2, you'll probably find that you've not practiced D minor and C quite as much as the other chords. Unless you've been trying to play some songs in the meantime, I would say that you've left those 2 chords alone. And the reason why those 2 chords get left alone is because they're probably the trickiest ones. Your fingers stretch out across 3 frets, which they don't do on any of the other chords. And your brain will naturally want you and make you play the simpler chords, because when you do that, you'll sound better and you'll be happier. And that's what your brain does. It tries to make you happy as much of the time as possible. So our exercises, these chord rotations, we're going to take the shapes, the different area shapes of the chords, and we're going to put them into different little postcodes. So the most awkward chord for most people to start with is a G, because it uses the little finger. So we start with a G. That's going to be our first chord. The second chord type, if you will, is going to be a middle chord, and that's anything in the middle area of the guitar. E minor, E, A minor, A, and C. All 5 of those chords are in the middle area of the guitar. So we call those middle chords. So we've got E minor or E, A minor or A, or the C chord. And then the last group of chords are the D chords. We've got a D and a D minor, and they're right down there in the corner. So they're quite far away from the middle chords in terms of strings, and they're different to a G shape. So there's these 3 different types of shapes. We've got the Gs, the middles, and the Ds. Now, when you move through these, if you do 2 strums on each chord and you try and generate a little bit of pace so that it moves a little. So you might do a G, and then another G, and then change to the middle chord, in this case an E minor, and then change to a D chord, in this case a D, and then you're going back to your G again. And this is the beginning of your second rotation, where you'll have a different middle chord like an E, and then a different D chord like a D minor. And you want to make sure that you do that so that you vary the chords that you play. Don't just do G, E minor and D. Change the middle chord, so you do E, A minor, or C, or A, any of those different ones. Change the D chord every time so that you're working D minor into the rotation. And this way, you're practicing moving through the trickiest chords that you can play. These are the ones that are going to hang you up. These are the ones that when they come up in a song, you're going to go, oh no, it's D minor. And then they might stutter a little bit. They might just slow down as you get to them because you haven't done them as much. So we're going to preempt that problem. We're going to avoid that problem before we even get near it. We're going to say, let's take the most difficult changes in the chords and let's nail those. You don't really need to practice changing between E minor and E, for example, or E and A minor, or A minor and A, because they're all very close to each other. So they don't really need too much work. So it's a good idea to work through these rotations in this way. 2 strums on each, clockwise, which I'm referring to clockwise as G to the middle to the D, so you're going around this way, which I would say is clockwise, and then counterclockwise or anti-clockwise would be the other way around. So you'd have to start with a G chord and do your 2 strums, and then down to a D, and then back up to the middle chords, and then back round to the G again. So you can rotate the chords round the other way. Even though you're playing the same chords when you do those anti-clockwise rotations, you've never played them in that order. You may never have gone from a G chord to a D chord, or from a D chord to a middle chord, or from a middle chord to a G chord again. So you may think to yourself, I've played those chords already, I know how they go, but you might not have practiced changing from one chord to the next, and it's chord changes which make guitar players trip up when they learn songs. So those are the chord rotation exercises. You move through them clockwise, you move through them anti-clockwise, and you just move around G, middle, and D until you're happy with that flowing, and then go back round the other way, G, D, and middle. You can practice this with your metronome. You can set your metronome to a nice slow pace and just set it going and try and play along. If you struggle to keep up, slow it down. If you find it really easy, speed it up. Don't forget to keep track of your metronome speeds for these exercises. Just get a little post-it and write down, okay, so, on Monday I did chord rotations clockwise and did them at 60 beats per minute or 70 beats per minute, however fast I did them. And then when you come to practice the next day, you can start from that point and then you can try and make it a little bit quicker if possible. Although don't forget, the speed isn't everything, it's the tone of the chords, making sure you're strumming from the correct string, making sure they sound nice and they sound correct. So those are the chord rotation exercises. The only caveat that I would have to add to that, the only thing that I would say to watch out for, is that the C chord can get neglected when you're doing chord rotations because it's the last one of the middle chords. So sometimes it's a good idea, instead of doing the G as the first chord, to maybe change that for a C and go C, E minor, D, C, A minor, D minor, C, and use the C chord instead of the G chord. Because the C chord is just as popular, but it is one of the trickier chords to change to. So a little variation on that chord rotation exercise is throwing in the C instead of the G and just swapping that out. And that will hopefully cover most of the different chord types and chord changes that you're going to find in the songs you're going to want to play. So that's the exercise I would recommend. Have a crack with that and see how you go.